Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today in Auburn at the council chambers. I'm especially happy to have the area mayors here with me today. And my name is Nancy Backus. I'm mayor for the city of Auburn. And if anyone knows me, they know that I am not a fan of leading by press conference. So the fact that we are here today with a press conference means that it's a pretty significant issue that we want to talk to you about. So without further ado, myself and the mayors next to me are here to ask for help. Help from our state elected leaders to reject proposed tax measures that would destabilize Washington's economy and have a lasting detrimental impact on our region's economic competitiveness. Job marketing and overall fiscal health are impacted as well. And I'm talking specifically about two new revenue proposals released by the state legislature as part of the 2025-2027 operating budget, a proposed payroll excise tax and increased business and occupation tax on large businesses, which the state classifies as any business with more than $7 million in payroll. These taxes will impact thousands of businesses across the state, including Auburn. As a city, we've worked hard to attract a diverse group of industries from aerospace and IT to healthcare, manufacturing, and freight services. These companies have choices about where they can do their business. These taxes will make attracting jobs, great jobs, much harder, not only in Auburn, but in other cities across the state. As I'm sure others here can attest, in Auburn, our largest businesses aren't necessarily generating the highest profit margins and would be unable to sustain operations without increasing costs. And we also know that that's a burden that they will pass on to our already cash-strapped residents. In a high inflation environment, a payroll tax will make goods and services even more unaffordable for the most marginalized populations. Higher labor costs will also lead to lower hiring rates and job creation, and will incentivize businesses to either invest in automation, including new tools like AI, or outsource labor altogether. With a recently imposed B&O tax in Auburn, which is the city's only way to generate new revenue, businesses are already feeling tax fatigue. Many of our largest businesses in the White River Valley are warehouses, and with increasing costs, it's becoming more financially reasonable for them to move out of the state altogether to avoid the high business taxes. Reduced revenues in Auburn could mean reduced spending in areas like public safety, human services, and public works, areas of city management that no resident wants to see underfunded. Washington businesses already pay an average of more than $10,000 per employee in state and local taxes, more than 23% above the national average, which is $8,200 per employee. The taxes being discussed would make that average significantly higher, putting Washington at a competitive disadvantage for job creation at a time when we can least afford it. In just a few short years, we could see distinctly Washington industries like aerospace and technology shrink before our very eyes, with high-paying jobs moving out of this state entirely. Myself and the electeds here in the room all share an appreciation for the predicament our state legislators are in. We know how difficult the situation is, and we are sympathetic. But I agree with Governor Ferguson when he said that new taxes should be the last resort. Above all else, we would like to problem solve together. That's how we work best, is together. And just as we've done at every fork in the road, we know we can be creative in reducing spending and generating revenue through economic development, not new taxes that will squeeze our already struggling businesses. Thank you again for allowing me the opportunity to speak and for coming to Auburn. And I'm now going to hand off to Lynn Robinson, Mayor of Bellevue.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lynn Robinson, Mayor of Bellevue, and I want to start by thanking Mayor Backus for hosting us here in Auburn. On Tuesday of this week, the Bellevue City Council voted unanimously to oppose the state's proposed head tax and increased B&O tax on large employers. Prior to that meeting, we had adopted a set of guidelines to inform how the city evaluates and responds to state budget and revenue proposals. And using this lens, it was clear that these proposed taxes pose a great danger to the prosperity of the city and the state. The House's B&O tax is estimated to affect 400 businesses statewide, and 39 of those are in the city of Bellevue. That's almost 10% of the entire state and could be devastating to our community. And what's more, the payroll tax would apply to the city of Bellevue itself as a large employer. We are concerned about the harmful impacts that these taxes will have to our economy, our large employers, and to our innovation ecosystem that fuels the region. We are concerned about losing strong community partners, our employees, as well as the many small businesses that will be impacted by the loss of this industry. Yesterday, we convened a meeting of local mayors, large employers hosted by former Washington State Governor Chris Gregoire, and attended by the Bellevue and Seattle Chamber Associations. And we are all united in our concern about the negative impact of these taxes. A dozen mayors have signed a joint letter to our state legislators expressing our opposition. And while we respect the difficult task of developing budgets for the entire state of Washington and the public servants who work so hard to find solutions, I am proud to stand alongside these cities in asking our lawmakers to find alternative ways to make their budgets pencil. There's simply too much at stake in many of our communities to risk jeopardizing our state's economic health during this most uncertain time. Thank you so much, and I'm going to introduce Redmond Mayor Angela Burney.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Redmond Mayor Angela Burney. One of the things that I always start out with when I meet people from around the country is my hometown of Redmond is the home of Microsoft, and that is something that I'm exceptionally proud of. The other things about Redmond is that we also consider ourselves the space district of the state, and as well as we're part of the Innovation Triangle with Bellevue and Kirkland. This tax that's being proposed, these taxes would have long-term harmful consequences for not just my city, not just this region, but also the state. I do appreciate where the state legislature is in trying to make their budget balance. I asked them to take a different look and find some other alternatives that don't have long-term harmful consequences. In my city and around the state, Washington's tech sector accounts for 1.5 million direct and indirect jobs. For every one tech job in my city and in the state, 3 more jobs are created for local businesses. Those are the coffee stores and chiropractors and dentists and shops and grocery stores. All of those employees, their jobs rely on our intense tech economy to ensure that those jobs exist, not just now, but into the future. Innovation is the center of a resilient economy. I am proud that in my city, innovation is a high priority to ensure that there are long-term implications for both our economy, the creative economy, and everything else that comes from those amazing jobs. And through their purchases, our tech workers provide another $1.5 billion in state sales tax. So once again, I ask the legislature to take another look, work with us, all of these mayors that stand around me and that signed on to this letter, to think a little differently about what we can do to help find the right answers for our state and our economy for the long term. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Renton Mayor Armando Pavoni.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Armando Pavoni, Mayor for the City of Renton, and I'd like to start by thanking Mayor Vasquez for hosting this event. When we look to the future, Renton is poised for an immense amount of growth, and we forecasted a need for almost 32,000 new jobs in Renton over the next 20 years. The current payroll and B&O tax proposal will make it much harder to sell our community when the cost of doing business is astronomically higher than in other states or countries. Love that they put that word in there for me. We fear that these proposals discourage the kind of growth that empowers our workforce and local economies. In South King County alone, Boeing generates $725 million in economic impact. Across the state, our aerospace industry employs over 13,000 Washingtonians and generates $4.6 billion in economic activity in our communities. Into the future, the aerospace industry is predicted to grow more than 6 times by 2045. We believe that the proposal on the payroll and B&O tax will have negative consequences on our aerospace industry and harm the communities like Renton who greatly benefit from their presence. We urge the state legislature to consider our future and the unintended side effects the payroll excise tax and targeted business and occupation tax will incur. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Backus.
So some of you may not always think that the east side of our county and the southern part of our county have much in common. But as you can see today, we definitely have a lot in common. We care about businesses. We care about the future of our communities. And that's why we are banding together, asking the state to reconsider and have another option for filling that budget shortfall. We are all standing here today together asking for that. We are willing to work with the state legislature. We are begging to work with the state legislature. We understand they have many, many challenges ahead of them, and this is one of the biggest. We want to be part of the solution. We don't like standing up and saying no to something. We like saying we don't agree with this, but we want to be with you to figure out a better solution. So thank you all for being here today. We do have some time for questions, or we can make individual mayors accessible to you. Yes?
Hi, I'm with Power 7. I'm just curious if you have any alternative solutions that you are, collectively standing behind that you're looking to put forward to the legislature, as opposed to the ones on the table.
So at this point, we're just focusing on this measure. We are willing to work with the legislature on this, so we do not have a tax that I would say we like more than another one. Nobody really likes taxes, let's be honest about that. But we just want to be part of that solution, discussing with them what some other alternatives are, and not necessarily focusing on an individual tax at this point. Yes.
And you talk about the concerns of some of these big businesses moving out of state. Have you gotten any real indication that this could actually happen, and any businesses maybe say to you that they're considering this?
So yes, Mayor Bernie, would you
Yeah,
like to
sure.
talk?
I think that there's a general concern from a lot of companies, but I say we can look at some of the information that we've gathered from, say, Seattle's Jumpstart tax, and how Amazon made a decision to move quite a few number of jobs into the city of Bellevue in order to change the direction that they were going. There are other, I think, long-term test cases where different states have done different things. There was an exodus from California up into our area when California imposed many large taxes. So I think that there is evidence and there are facts that back up the challenge that we're facing if indeed these taxes were imposed.
Any other questions?
One more.
One more? Sure.
This one can be
Okay.
because it's somebody here in Auburn. I was talking with a small business owner who is worried about the trickle down effect.
Absolutely.
Give your perspective on that. What do you think that would really look like?
So-
things like that. That's what they're worried about.
So that trickle-down effect is real. I mean, we know on the positive side, one of our largest employers, the Boeing company, has an impact on this region and on the smaller businesses, the suppliers. At one point, I think and this was years ago when I still worked for the Boeing company, and it was talking about for every dollar, there's a $7 impact within the region, and I think it's even greater than that now. That's on a positive side when they were talking about the signing bonuses, right, for the company. So that has to have that same impact on the reverse of that. And so when our larger employers perhaps are moving out of this region, those smaller employers don't have a customer. They go out of business. That impacts them and their ability to have family wage jobs for their employees, for them themselves, for them to have safe and affordable housing. All of those things go away. And as we mentioned, it impacts our ability to provide roads and infrastructure. It impacts our ability to provide human services. And it impacts everyone in the community. We may think that this is only impacting big businesses and who cares, they make so much money. The fact is, it impacts every one of us on a daily basis. And if those large employers move out of our state because of this, we don't get them back. We don't get a second chance. And our people's lives are impacted greatly.